Hello, everybody. Happy Monday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today, but first, we just hit 2,280 subscribers to the channel. Big growth the last couple days. I want to give a shout out to all the subscribers, and as always, special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, including new channel members Rabbittron and King Gabba, and elite channel members HaWKxXA, Brandon Mikel, Rip, Scott Todd, Hasher for MVP, VGK Tiger 75, John Harper, and Salacious Crumb. All right, first video of the offseason, and I do plan on making some videos that are a little more constructive in terms of things that I think we need to do and decisions that need to be made in order to keep this team playing at a high level and hopefully having a slightly higher ceiling in 2021. This video is not really going to be that. This video is going to be kind of cleaning up the mess that 2020 left us after this disappointing playoff flameout. And look, I've been reading the comments on my videos the last couple days. I've been reading comments in my Discord server to try to get an idea of where people are with various things that the Seahawks may do in the upcoming months to improve their chances of winning it all in 2021. And it seems like there's pretty much consensus on Schottenheimer needing to get out of here because he's had 3 years now. Some of the results have been good, but when the rubber has met the road, he hasn't done well in the playoffs. And this last 2 months were just bad. These last 2 months were brutal, and he's not getting the most out of these players, and we need to go in another direction. I think 90 to 95% of people in my comments and on my Discord server want Brian Schottenheimer out of here, so I think that one's pretty obvious. Carroll, there's a pretty good split on. There are some people who want him gone. There are some people who want him to come back. And then there are people who I think want him gone but aren't willing to say it because they know it's never going to happen because he just got extended, so they don't even really want to bother talking about it, which I understand. And then you have the Russell Wilson thing, and I want to make this video to kind of really address the Russell Wilson thing because I'm getting a lot of comments from people who are upset at me for putting Wilson under the bus after what happened on Sunday. And I want to use this video to make a point that I don't really feel like needs to be made, but it seems like some people don't understand this. So, yeah, I guess I'm going to go ahead and make a video about the reality of Russell Wilson and why, yes, he does need to be perfect. Okay, so I've made a little spreadsheet here, and what you are looking at is Russell Wilson's cap hit relative to the top players in the league in terms of cap hit over his career. So first column, you have the year. That's pretty easy, 2012 to 2020. Or excuse me, 2012 to 2020, every year of his career so far. And then you have his cap hit, a little more than $500,000 in his first year, almost 500,000 his rookie year, almost 700,000 second year, over 800,000 the next year, 7 million, so on. You guys know how that works. It's worked its way all the way up to 31 million in the most recent season. This was his cap hit in 2020. So what percent of the salary cap did Russell Wilson take up in each of these 9 seasons? Well, early on he was taking up 0.5%, slightly more than 0.5%. Then he bumps up to almost 5%, 12%, tails back down to 8.5%, 13.5%, almost 14, 15.5%. Okay, are you guys seeing where I'm going here? Okay, and just for the sake of comparison, so you guys can get a better idea of how this stacks Wilson up against the most highest paid players in the league. This column is for whichever player had the highest cap percentage that year. So some years it was Matthew Stafford, some years it was Eli Manning, one year it was Namkada Suh, one year it was Jimmy Garoppolo. This most recent year it was Dak Prescott because he was on the franchise tag, whatever. Whichever player it was who took up the biggest portion of the cap, that percentage is represented here. So in 2012, there was a player that took up almost 16. Next year, 17. Year after that, almost 17. On and on. And this final column represents the percentage that Wilson was making relative to whoever was leading the NFL that year. So in 2012, he was only making 3.2 2% of the highest cap percentage. The next year he was making less than 3%. The year after he was making slightly more than 3.5%. And then he gets his new contract. It jumps up to 28%. Next year, 77% almost. Drops down a little bit the next couple years. And it's worked its way all the way up to where he is literally a hair away from the top spot. Let me express this in a chart form for you. So this blue line represents the percentage of the Seahawks salary cap that Wilson took up at each point in his career. 2000, basically nothing. 2013, basically nothing. 2014, basically nothing. 2015, it goes up a little bit to almost 5%. And then it rockets up to 12. It comes down for 1 year, but then it starts creeping back up. And then this red line represents whichever player led the entire NFL in that year's cap hit. So you can see there is a massive difference between the cap hit of Wilson and the cap hit of whichever player led the league. That year it might have been Joe Flacco, and then eventually that starts to narrow and narrow and narrow. And like a set of jaws, it just closes to where he basically is number one in 2020 in terms of cap hit. And I'm sure a lot of people are generally aware of this, but I don't get the sense that they understand the ramifications of this and what it means for him and what it means for us as fans and what we as fans and we as an organization need to expect of him. And here's one final chart, just in case. Here is Wilson's cap hit by year expressed as a percentage of whoever led the league in cap hits. So early on, basically nothing. Jumps up to over 25%, still very reasonable for a starting QB in the NFL. And then goes all the way up past 75%. And then it dips down for a couple years, mostly because there were a couple players that demanded a ridiculous portion of the cap. I think Jimmy Garoppolo demanded over 20% of his team's cap in 2018. And then it comes way back up all the way to the point where he's almost at 100% now. He, in 2020, literally had the biggest cap hit of any player in the NFL not named Dak Prescott. And Dak Prescott was on a franchise tag. So that tiny bit of money between one player's cap hit and the other player's cap hit is easily made up by the fact that there was zero commitment to Dak Prescott beyond 2020. So in terms of being a salary cap hog, Russell Wilson was the number one player in the league in this category. So I know everybody's going to look at this and say, we already know this. We understand that Wilson's getting paid more now than he used to. But it almost seems like some people don't understand that with that additional money comes additional expectations and additional standards of play that we need to hold him to. Because I just see nothing but excuses for Russell Wilson right now. And there really should be no excuses for a guy who is making this much of the salary cap compared to the number one player in the league in terms of taking up salary cap. Again, the only player who took up more cap this year was Dak Prescott, who was on a franchise tag. So, do you know that scene in Goodfellas near the beginning when the guy borrows money from the mob to buy the restaurant, and Henry's talking about how it didn't matter what happened, the mob was going to get their money? Like, you know, if there's a lightning strike that burns down the restaurant, F you, pay me. If nobody goes into the restaurant that week because of COVID. I mean, he didn't actually say that, but the point is, whatever happens, you're going to get, the mob is going to get paid, or else there's going to be a problem. Doesn't matter if it's a slow season, doesn't matter if it burns down, doesn't matter, F you, pay me. That's kind of what I want to get across here when we're talking about Russell Wilson. F you, play good. Okay? It does. If the offensive line isn't playing very well, make people miss. Used to do that all the time. Receivers aren't getting open, make a perfect throw. The play call is bad, change the play call. The scheme is bad, make perfect plays. Okay? Russell Wilson made more money last year than I'm going to make if I live to be 150 in all likelihood. Okay? I think it's reasonable that we have very high standards of him. A lot of these comments I'm getting boiled down to, we can't ask Russell Wilson to be perfect. I say we can, and we should. Okay? We are, and this is not me saying that Wilson was wrong to get as much money as he could in his contract, because as a person, he's trying to secure himself and his future for the long term. And I completely understand that. If he was able to put the team in a position where they needed to offer him this giant contract, then he should take it. Under no circumstance should he give back some of that money because, oh, I feel like I don't deserve it. No, he's a human being. He's a person. He's trying to establish himself and his family for generations. And I'm not saying that the team necessarily made a mistake in giving one player all this money. There are other teams in the league that are succeeding at a very high level despite paying their quarterback a ton of money and expending a huge percentage of the cap on him. And there are mistakes that this franchise made with how they used the salary cap that caused them to have some of the shortcomings they had on Saturday. They spent $7 million on Greg Olsen to be basically worthless for us. They spent $3.5 million on Jacob Hollister to be not much better. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with paying Wilson the equivalent of $35 million a year and having all this cap invested into him. But what I am saying is that if you're going to do that, he needs to be perfect. He needs to overcome the obstacles in front of him. You want to get Schottenheimer and Carroll and some of these other coaches out of here? I'm right there with you. And I'm not ruling out the possibility that with a good offensive scheme and some improvements made to play calling, Wilson could be much better next year than he was these last 2 months. But at the same time, when you're paying a guy this much, he needs to be able to overcome that. Or else, why is he making all that money? I understand that the team made some mistakes with how they distributed the salary cap last offseason. Like I said, Greg Olsen being the main culprit there. But a big reason why Wilson doesn't have the greatest offensive line in the world right now might be because he took all that money. So if you're not able to overcome that and play well despite that, then get to stepping. And again, I know that to a lot of people out there, you're going to look at this and say, we already understand that Wilson's making a huge amount of money compared to what he used to make. But I don't feel like people are taking the next step there and saying he's making all this money, therefore he needs to be the best player in the league or a top 3 player. And you cannot say that he was lately because when the team wasn't able to give him full support, he wasn't able to lift them up. Is what it is, guys. That's my take. And I want it to be known that every time somebody in my comment section tries to make excuses for Wilson, put the blame on somebody else, put it on the O-line, put it on the offensive coordinator, the scheme, the play calling, the receivers, know that for all time and all eternity, my response to any excuses you can make for what Russell Wilson did the last 2 months plus is this: 15.5. Any excuse you can make for the way Wilson played these last 2 months, this is my response right here. 15.5. And nothing else need be said. 15.5. Peace out. Go Hawks. I will be streaming the national championship game tonight. Come tune in for it. It's going to be fun. Final college football game of the year, and then we're going to do some streams after. See you guys then. Peace out. Go Hawks. 15.5.